Recently on stream, I have been playing a very different kind of game to what I normally play. A game that's of a far different culture to what this channel focuses on, but something that is still quite action-packed and has some really interesting mechanics. This game is Gundam Extreme vs. Maxi Boost On. Yes, the name is a bit of a mouthful, but that's actually pretty typical for a Gundam vs. game. Now, it's about to go live on PS4 very soon, and not just for Japan, but actually for every region, which kind of makes it really exciting for me to incorporate this into my general gaming diet. Now, naturally, as many of us are from the quote-unquote Western world, if you will, we're probably not that familiar with a game like the Gundam vs. games, nor are we probably that familiar with the Gundam franchise as a whole. I'm not going to go into the Gundam franchise per se, but I'd like to take this time to give you an introduction as to what this game is about, as well as basically what's happening on the screen so that everything makes a little bit more sense. Let's get into it. So, Gundam Extreme Vs. is a third-person mecha player versus player game, although there is like story modes and arcade modes and various other single-player aspects in this game as well. Now, typically this is actually a popular arcade game in Japan, and when I was in Tokyo, I actually came across quite a lot of machines that had particularly the Gundam vs. game on them, so this is really something else. Now, usually, especially in an online multiplayer setting, we are looking at a 2 versus 2 kind of game. So there's you and your partner, and you're going up against 2 other players. Now, the goal of the game is actually to deplete the enemy's point meter that you would normally find on the top left-hand side of the screen. Usually, in a typical game, especially online multiplayer, you're looking at about 6,000 points in order to actually defeat your opponents. Now, in order to actually deplete that point meter, you basically need to defeat your opponents, but the amount of points that they lose if they happen to be defeated is based on the cost of their mobile suit, which is what mechas are actually called in the Gundam franchise. For example, you have big Gundams such as New Gundam, who cost 3,000 points. So, obviously, if you defeat a player who is using New Gundam, their team loses 3,000 points. Awesome. Whereas if they were playing something like the original Gundam from 1979, I believe, then they would only lose 2,000 points because the original Gundam only costs 2,000 points. The points meter also acts like a life point kind of thing when it comes to respawning as a defeated player. So this is something that you need to keep an eye on. If the opposing team only has 1,500 points remaining and you just defeated their player who is using New Gundam, who costs 3,000 points, then when they respawn, they only have half of their health, because the amount of points that remains is then used as a proportion to the amount of health that they respawn back as. If they have more than enough points to essentially sustain their respawn, then they come back with full health. Whereas if, for example, they only have 500 points left and it's New Gundam who is respawning with that 3,000 cost, they're only going to come back with a very tiny fraction of their health. Now, here's the thing about all of the characters and the mobile suits that you can choose in Gundam Extreme Verse. Almost all mobile suits have some form of melee weapon combos. So, for example, we're looking at beam swords, we're looking at anti-ship swords, we're looking at axes, we're looking at good old-fashioned fists as well. And almost all mobile suits have some form of ranged weaponry. So we're looking at small guns, we're looking at big guns, we're looking at even bigger guns, we're looking at missiles, lasers, and of course the good old-fashioned satellite cannon. Now, some mobile suits are really good at using both their melee weaponry and their ranged weaponry. An example would be the original Gundam, Zeta Gundam, typically Zaku's as well, and of course Gundam Unicorn. Whereas we have some mobile suits who are actually much better at melee gameplay. So for example, all of the mobile suits from the G Gundam series, because that particular series is based on a Gundam fighting ring type scenario, or the Exia Gundam and the 00 variants, or Epion, who straight up doesn't even have any guns, or possibly even the Sinanju that is featured in Gundam Unicorn. whereas some mobile suits are particularly good at ranged gameplay. So some examples of that would be the Wing Zeros, the Dynamis and the Zabanya, the Launcher Strike and the Blast Impulse, as well as possibly the full armor Double Zeta Gundam. Now, another thing to understand when it comes to this game is the targeting system. Basically, the rule of thumb is the closer you are to your opponents, the more likely it is that you will hit them, obviously. But here's the thing, if the targeting reticle is red, then projectiles, including beams, including missiles, they will actively hone in on your enemies. Whereas if the targeting reticle is green, well, unfortunately your projectiles will have no homing function whatsoever. As well as if the targeting reticle is yellow, then even projectiles that quote-unquote hit, they will actually not register as any damage, they will effectively miss. So that's just something you gotta keep an eye on if you're watching the stream, or if you're, even more importantly, playing the game. That's just something you're gonna have to keep an eye on. Hopefully this covers the basics of what's going on in the game. There's a lot of things to talk about if we want to actually get into details about the various strengths and weaknesses, at least in my opinion, of various mobile suits, as well as particular tactics, particular strategies that I would use, and so much more. Now, there's a good to fair chance that I will also try to make some Gundam versus videos in the future, especially to do with those points, but also maybe some individual mobile suit overviews. We'll just have to see. But for now, I will continue to stream this game, especially when I'm playing the online multiplayer. So if you happen to have a PS4 and you would like to join me, just know that this game is going to be on the pricey side. It costs $60 on the PSN store, so it's going to be one of those games. If you can afford it, I would recommend it. If you can't, fair enough. So, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Is this a game that has actually got your interest? Let me know in the comments. Are you a Gundam fan? Because I feel like this is literally the game that pretty much all Gundam fans would enjoy. So, that's just my opinion. I could very well be wrong. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Gundam versus action. Don't forget to hit that bell icon because the YouTube algorithm is always a piece of crap. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.